There comes a quiet moment in every life when the noise of excuses fades, and a single uncomfortable truth steps forward and asks to be heard. And that moment is the beginning of everything. You may not recognize it at first because it does not arrive with applause or dramatic music. It arrives in silence, often late at night or early in the morning when the world is still and your thoughts become louder than your distractions. It is the moment you realize that the story you have been telling yourself about why life feels heavy, unfair, or slow has one missing character, and that character is you. For years, maybe even decades, it has felt safer to point outward, to believe the job was wrong, the timing was wrong, the people were wrong, the opportunities were unfair, the world was tilted against you. Blame is comforting because it protects your identity from discomfort, and comfort feels like safety, even when it quietly keeps you stuck in the same place. The idea that your results are connected to your decisions feels terrifying because responsibility feels heavy when you have never carried it before. Yet there is a strange freedom hidden inside that weight, a freedom so powerful that it can transform an ordinary life into a comeback story. This is the moment often described in the teachings of Dr. Grandpa Henry, the moment when a person stops asking why life is happening to them and begins asking what they can do with what is happening. The shift sounds small, but it is seismic, because blame keeps your power outside of you, while ownership returns your power back into your hands. Imagine holding a remote control that changes the direction of your life and suddenly realizing you have been sitting on it the entire time. That realization is not comfortable, it does not feel heroic, and it does not instantly solve your problems, but it changes the direction of your focus. Instead of scanning the world for who is responsible for your pain, your attention turns inward and asks what habits, decisions, fears, and patterns may be quietly shaping your outcomes. At first, this feels unfair, almost cruel, because it seems like you are taking responsibility for everything that went wrong, but that is not what ownership truly means. Ownership is not about guilt or self-punishment. It is about reclaiming the ability to influence the future. When you stop blaming others, you are not saying they never hurt you or that life never treated you unfairly. You are simply deciding that your next chapter will not be written by the past. This is the doorway to growth, and the moment you step through it, something surprising happens inside your mind. The feeling of helplessness begins to shrink, and in its place grows a quiet sense of possibility that whispers a new question you have rarely asked before. What if the comeback begins the moment I take responsibility for the direction of my life? At first, the mind resists this shift, because blame has been its shield for so long that removing it feels like stepping into a storm without protection. And this is where the real suspense begins. The old story starts fighting back with convincing arguments that sound logical and familiar, whispering that the world truly is unfair, that people really did let you down, that circumstances really were stacked against you. These statements are not always lies, and that is what makes them so powerful, because truth mixed with helplessness can feel like destiny. The victim mindset does not always look dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it looks responsible, careful, and realistic, but beneath the surface, it quietly removes your ability to change what comes next. It teaches you to wait instead of act, to hope instead of build, and to complain instead of create. Meanwhile, the ownership mindset asks something terrifying and liberating at the same time, because it asks you to imagine that your future is not determined by what happened to you, but by what you choose to do now. This idea creates tension inside the heart because it removes the comfort of excuses and replaces it with the challenge of action. The suspense grows in this internal battle between the familiar voice of blame and the unfamiliar voice of responsibility, and the outcome of that battle decides the direction of your life. There is a hidden reason this moment feels so intense, because when you accept responsibility, you lose the right to remain the same person you were yesterday. Growth becomes unavoidable, and growth demands effort, discipline, and courage. Suddenly, the mirror becomes more important than the window, and reflection becomes more powerful than complaint. The teachings often associated with Dr. Grandpa Henry describe this stage as the emotional crossroads where many people turn back because it feels easier to return to old stories than to write new ones. Yet those who stay in this uncomfortable space long enough begin to notice a quiet change in their daily thoughts. Instead of asking why this keeps happening to me, they begin asking what small step can I take today. Instead of waiting for motivation, they start creating momentum through tiny, consistent actions. Instead of expecting the world to become easier, they begin becoming stronger. This transformation does not happen overnight, and it does not come with applause, but it brings something far more valuable than comfort. It brings clarity. With clarity comes the realization that responsibility is not a punishment, but a tool, and the more you use it, the sharper it becomes. Suddenly, the problems that once looked like permanent walls start to look like temporary puzzles waiting for solutions. The suspense slowly turns into momentum, and the fear of change begins to transform into curiosity about what might be possible if you continue moving forward. In this quiet but powerful shift, the comeback stops being a distant dream and starts becoming a daily decision shaped by the choices you make. The most powerful part of this transformation arrives when responsibility stops feeling like an idea and begins to feel like a daily practice. Because change is not built in grand dramatic moments, but in small, consistent actions, repeated long enough to reshape identity. The ownership mindset becomes real the moment you stop asking what went wrong and start asking what can be improved today. And this question quietly rewires how you approach every challenge in front of you. Instead of seeing mistakes as evidence of failure, you begin seeing them as feedback pointing toward growth. Instead of waiting for confidence to appear, you build it by keeping promises you make to yourself, one small promise at a time. The comeback is no longer a fantasy you hope for someday. It becomes a process you participate in every single day. The teachings connected to Dr. Grandpa Henry often emphasize that responsibility is the birthplace of momentum, because once you accept that your actions influence your direction, every decision suddenly matters. The way you spend your morning matters. The way you react to setbacks matters. The way you speak to yourself matters. And these small moments begin stacking together like bricks, building a new foundation beneath your life. One simple exercise begins this shift immediately by asking you to write down one area of your life where you feel stuck, and then list 3 actions you can take within the next 24 hours that move you forward even slightly. The actions do not need to be impressive or dramatic. They only need to be real and consistent. This practice teaches your brain that progress is created through movement, not perfection. Another powerful exercise asks you to replace every complaint you notice with a question that begins with "What can I do next?" And this small change in language slowly transforms your mindset from passive to proactive. Over time, these tiny shifts create a quiet confidence that does not depend on external validation because it is built on evidence of your own effort. The person who once waited for change begins creating it, and the life that once felt controlled by circumstances begins responding to intention and action. This is the moment the comeback fully activates, not as a single event, but as a new identity built through ownership, discipline, and self-respect. The journey continues long after this realization, but the direction is no longer uncertain because you are no longer waiting for someone else to fix your life. You have stepped into the role of the person who leads it forward with clarity and purpose, and the power of that decision continues to grow with every step you take. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.